Thank you for visiting peoplenow.org and this plan to fund the plan to rapidly implement the UN SDG TAPs, that's Target Action Plans. As you all know by now, there are 169 targets, 17 SDGs. So there's a lot of work to do, very important. This view graph outlines Target Action Plan number 31 from our common agenda. Reduce inequalities and outline funding and donation sources. This list will provide upfront surge funding to rapidly implement the UN Sustainable Development Goals and targets and end poverty. Critical thing. Rapidly get everyone in the world working together at decent work and living wages and becoming self-sufficient. Paying down the national debt and ending sequestration and austerity programs. This will also end recessions and economic collapses forever. There are Cap 31 lists about 32 funding sources and cost avoiding measures. Cost avoiding measures include things like ending U.S. wars, which are costing us about $1 trillion a year when you look at all the different money we spend. The two items I'd like to discuss further are taxation and also about the Federal Reserve. Target Action Plan number 32 is about reforming and greatly simplifying our taxation. We have very regressive taxes now. Things like sales tax is the same on the poor, and they cannot afford that. So this plan calls for eliminating income, sales, estate, corporate, and all other taxes except for one tax, a very progressive property tax on the net assets of all individuals, corporations, businesses, and other entities with more than $1 million in net assets, no matter where in the world the net assets are, including money hidden in overseas tax havens. So if anyone has less than $1 million in net assets, and net assets are your total of all your assets, what you own, minus what you owe, mortgages, whatever that is. So if you have a $1.5 million home and you owe, say, $800,000 on it, your mortgage is $800,000, you'll pay no taxes. We also will have generous tax deductions based on the worthiness of the charitable causes being supported by the taxpayer. Now, in our plan, we say that we need donations, and in particular, we need arable land for the people that are destitute and in poverty to grow vegetables and food on, and also to plant trees on to combat climate change. So that would be a very generous, a very worthwhile charitable cause, and it will deserve a generous tax deduction. Instead of saying they donated $100,000 of donated land, normally that would be the tax break you'd get. It would be $100,000 less than your total net worth. But we would give you credit, this plan would give you credit for more. Now, of course, this is a proposed plan. It's not in place. So the idea would be to get this done as rapidly as possible. And also, one idea about these plans is to be able to mimic it in local jurisdictions, state jurisdictions, and by the federal government, and in other countries all over the world. This uh, would work wonders. This will simplify all the tax codes, uh, and it will actually reduce the cost of taxation by at least 90%. We will not need as many people on taxes. That don't mean we lay anybody off. We get those people working on what they would like to work on if they're not needed in taxes, like combating climate change. Eliminate the need for at least 90% of bookkeeping and paperwork, such as a nanny EIN. If you hire a nanny EIN today, no matter how much you're going to pay her, you'll have to have an EIN. It's an identification number to keep up with the taxes. Eliminate all unjust tax loopholes. People that have a lot of wealth can afford to donate it. And that's a critical point here. Someone with $1 billion certainly doesn't need the $1 billion, and much less if they have 80 billion, they don't need that. So think about this. At first, it'll be a little bit hard to sell to people because they are greedy for some reason. Some people are. And it just take a little bit of thinking about how important this is to get those people fed. We have 11 million children dying a year from lack of food and the lack of the right health care. This is Target Action Plan number 22. You can read the entire plan by going to our common agenda and clicking on tab 22. This is nationalize the Federal Reserve. This view graph summarizes it. The Constitution says Congress shall coin the money, shall appropriate the money. The Federal Reserve Act allows a private group of banks to actually generate money by fractional banking, which should be against the law. It was at one time. We need to vacate as null and void the entire Federal Reserve Act of 1913 and all its amendments. We need to nationalize the Federal Reserve. Now, the government needs to print and appropriate U.S. currency as required by the Constitution, and it will not be a dollar for dollar exchange rate. People that have earned money and reported their own income tax as earned, it'll be exchanged for Federal Reserve notes on a dollar for a dollar's worth of Federal Reserve notes. For the people that have made money off of money, it'll have to be determined how the money was determined and how they intend to be used. Now, we need to carefully do this. I see the bottom line here is avoid recessions and economic collapses. We definitely want to honor the Federal Reserve notes that are justified. And we'll do that by returning the money, all the Federal Reserve notes, to the United States, and do it in the United States. Now, people can withdraw enough to live on and to do things, but we do not, the law, once it's enacted, should say that they cannot buy other businesses with Federal Reserve notes, not spend millions or billions of dollars with Federal Reserve notes. And we also, today, the Federal Reserve has accumulated by using money they printed or money they've given to the banks. They have several $1 trillion worth of assets. That was purchased basically with taxpayers' dollars. The Federal Reserve notes are printed in the name, but not legally. So we need to recover, disgorge the several $trillion from Federal Reserve assets. And very, very important is to avoid recessions and economic collapses. There's a lot more to this, so you need to read the TAP 22 by going to the Common Agenda and finding that. Thank you very much for looking at this. There are 30 other ways of rapidly implementing the UN SDG TAPs. So you can see these by reading TAP 22. Thank you and have a great day.